She stood frozen in the mall, her boss, the man she was falling for, and the single word that shattered everything. Mom. He was her boss's son, the son she never spoke about, the son who'd been gone for 5 years. And he'd known for a month. Every date, every kiss, every time she talked about work, he knew. But that wasn't even the worst part. This is the story of Park Yuna, 27 years old, personal assistant to Seoul's most feared CEO, the woman they called the Ice Queen. Yuna had lasted 18 months in a job where others quit in tears after 3 weeks. She was brilliant, efficient, untouchable. Until she met him at a cafe, a photographer with kind eyes and a warm smile, someone who saw her as more than just an assistant. They fell fast. Coffee turned into dinners, dinners into sunset walks by the river. He made her laugh, made her feel alive. But he was hiding something, something that connected him to her boss, to her past, to a family tragedy she thought she'd left behind. And when the truth came out, it destroyed everything. Before we dive in, if you love stories about secrets and betrayal, stories that make your heart ache and hope at the same time, hit that like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we post stories like this every week. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. And drop a comment telling us, if you ever discovered someone you loved was hiding something huge, how did you handle it? Now, let's begin. In the heart of Seoul's Gangnam district stood Kang Industries, a gleaming tower of glass and steel, luxury real estate development, billion-dollar deals. And at the very top, behind the corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, sat the woman they called the Ice Queen. Ms. Kang, 52 years old, CEO, self-made, ruthless. She'd built her empire from nothing 30 years ago after her husband abandoned her and their infant son. She learned early that warmth was weakness, that mercy was a luxury she couldn't afford. Her office reflected her perfectly. Cold, pristine, expensive, everything in its place. No photographs, no personal touches, just success displayed in awards and architectural models of the buildings she'd created. And standing beside her desk, tablet in hand, was the only person in the entire company who wasn't afraid of her. Park Yuna, 27 years old, personal assistant, the woman who had lasted longer than anyone thought possible. 18 months, that was the record. Previous assistants had lasted 3 weeks, 2 months if they were particularly resilient, all left in tears. But Yuna was different. She anticipated Ms. Kang's needs before the words left her mouth. She knew when to speak and when to stay silent. She organized chaos into order and made the impossible happen before lunch. The entire office had learned, if you wanted to approach the Ice Queen, you went through Yuna first. Yuna's desk sat just outside Ms. Kang's office, a strategic position. From here, she controlled access, managed schedules, and acted as translator between Ms. Kang's cold efficiency and the human beings who worked below. People asked her how she did it, how she survived the Ice Queen. The truth was simple. Yuna respected strength. And beneath Ms. Kang's frozen exterior, she saw something others missed. A woman who had sacrificed everything personal for professional success. A woman who had forgotten how to be anything except ice. What Yuna didn't know was that Ms. Kang saw something in her too, something she would never admit. Not to Yuna, not even to herself. She saw the daughter she'd never had. But Ms. Kang had buried those feelings so deep, she'd almost convinced herself they didn't exist. It was a Wednesday morning when Ms. Kang did something unprecedented. She stood at her office window, back to Yuna, and said words she hadn't spoken in 3 years. "I'm taking tomorrow off." Yuna looked up from her tablet, certain she'd misheard. Ms. Kang didn't take days off. She worked weekends, holidays. Even that time she had the flu, she'd called in from her apartment, voice hoarse but commands sharp. Yuna asked carefully, "Is everything all right?" Ms. Kang didn't turn around. She said, her voice carefully neutral, "My younger sister is getting married. She's requested my presence." There was something in her voice, something Yuna had never heard before. Vulnerability. Ms. Kang continued, I need you to handle everything tomorrow. Reschedule the Jensen meeting. Tell the board I'll review their proposals Friday. No calls, no emergencies, nothing. Then softer, this is important. Yuna understood immediately. Ms. Kang had mentioned her sister exactly once in 18 months. The family she'd left behind to build her empire. The relationships she'd sacrificed. And now, for the first time, she was choosing them, even if just for one day. Yuna said, "Of course, Ms. Kang. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly." Ms. Kang finally turned. For just a second, something like gratitude crossed her face. Then the ice was back. "Thank you, Yuna." After Ms. Kang left that evening, Yuna stayed late. She reorganized the next day's schedule, sent carefully worded emails, and made sure every potential crisis had a contingency plan. Ms. Kang deserved one peaceful day. By 8 p.m., Yuna realized something startling. She had the next day off too. A full day. No early morning calls, no emergency meetings, freedom. She pulled out her phone and called her best friends. Kim Soo-jin answered on the first ring. "Tell me you're calling to say you're free tomorrow." Yuna laughed. "How did you know?" Soo-jin, who owned a cozy cafe in Hongdae, said, "Because you never call during work hours. The Ice Queen must be out of town." Close, family wedding. A family, she has one of those. Yuna could hear the grin in Soo-jin's voice. "Come to the cafe tomorrow. I'll call Hae-jin. We'll actually hang out like normal people." Lee Hae-jin was their third friend. 29 years old, married to a conglomerate heir, and deeply unhappy. Her husband, Do Hyun, was always working. His mother was a nightmare who walked into their home unannounced, criticized everything, and had once commented on their lack of sexual chemistry at a family dinner. When Soo-jin called her, Hae-jin said immediately, "I'm there. I need to get out of this house before my mother-in-law rearranges my closet again." The next evening, the three women met at Moonlight Cafe. Soo-jin's pride and joy. Warm lighting, comfortable chairs, the smell of fresh coffee and lavender. It was everything corporate Seoul wasn't. Human, cozy, real. They settled into their usual corner booth. Soo-jin brought over wine and snacks. Hae-jin launched immediately into a story about her mother-in-law walking in while she and Do Hyun were trying to have a romantic evening. She'd literally knocked on their bedroom door to ask if they were being productive. Yuna and Soo-jin winced. Yuna said, "That's boundary violations on every level." Hae-jin sighed. Do Hyun just apologized to her, like we were the ones being inappropriate. Hae-jin stared into her wine glass. She said quietly, "I love him, I do, but I'm disappearing in this marriage. His mother treats me like hired staff. He works 16-hour days. I'm just there in that big empty house, waiting." Soo-jin reached across and squeezed her hand. "You deserve better than waiting." They talked for another hour. About work, about life, about dreams they'd put on hold. For the first time in months, Yuna felt herself relax. This was what she'd been missing. Connection, laughter, being something other than Ms. Kang's assistant. That's when she noticed him, a man sitting in the corner near the window. Early 30s, wearing a casual sweater and jeans, a professional camera on the table beside him. He was sketching something in a notebook, completely absorbed. There was something about him, the way he looked at the world like it was worth documenting, like it mattered. He looked up, their eyes met. He smiled and it was warm, genuine. Not the polite corporate smile Yuna saw every day, a real smile that reached his eyes. He stood and walked over. Soo-jin noticed first and grinned knowingly. He said to Yuna, "You're new here." It wasn't a pickup line, just an observation. Yuna found herself smiling back. "First time my friend owns the place." He glanced at Soo-jin. "Ah, the boss. She makes the best lavender lattes in Seoul." Soo-jin laughed. "Yi-hun here is my most loyal customer. Photographer. Comes in 3 times a week." Yi-hun. The name felt right for him. He asked if he could join them for a moment. Soo-jin and Hae-jin exchanged looks and suddenly remembered they needed to check on something in the kitchen. Subtle as sledgehammers. Yuna and Yi-hun talked. About photography. About Seoul. About how the city looked different when you really paid attention. He told her about his project, a documentary photography series called Empire's Cost, about what people sacrifice to build success, the human price of ambition. Yuna found herself fascinated. He spoke about his work with such passion. He asked what she did. Yuna hesitated, then said vaguely, "I work in corporate, administrative stuff for a real estate development company." She didn't mention Kang Industries, didn't mention the Ice Queen. For once, she wanted to just be Yuna, not someone's assistant. They talked until the cafe started closing. Sujin gave Yuna exaggerated thumbs up from behind the counter. When it was time to leave, Yi-hun asked if he could have her number. Not in a pushy way, just hopeful. Yuna gave it to him, and as she walked home that night, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Possibility. They met for coffee that Saturday, then dinner the next week, then a walk along the Han River at sunset. Yi-hun was easy to be with. He listened, really listened, asked questions like her answers mattered. Yuna found herself laughing more than she had in months. He made terrible jokes, took photos of the most mundane things and made them beautiful, told stories about the people he'd photographed. Each date felt like discovering a new part of herself she'd forgotten existed. 3 weeks in, they walked along the river after dinner. The sun was setting. Painting everything gold and pink, he asked about her work. She said, "I'm a personal assistant for Kang Industries, real estate development." Something changed in his expression, just for a second. His smile faltered. She noticed and asked, "You okay?" He recovered quickly. "Yeah, I've heard of them, big company." But something had shifted. She could feel it. What Yuna didn't know was that Yi-hun had recognized the name immediately. Kang Industries, his mother's company, the empire that had consumed her entire life, the business she'd chosen over him, over family, over everything. He'd been photographing her world without knowing his mother's assistant was standing right in front of him. And now, he was falling for her. The universe had a cruel sense of irony. That night, Yi-hun couldn't sleep. He researched. Kang Industries. 8 years ago, his mother's company had been an investor in a mid-sized construction firm. When the firm hit financial trouble, Kang Industries pulled their funding. The firm collapsed, bankrupted. He cross-referenced the name. His heart sank. It was Yuna's family company. His mother had destroyed her family's business. And Yuna didn't even know. She probably didn't know the full story of what had happened 8 years ago, just that her family lost everything. He should tell her everything. That his mother was her boss, that his mother had ruined her family, that he'd known for 2 weeks and said nothing. But he was falling in love with her, and he was terrified the truth would end it before it even began. The next time they met, Yi-hun tried. They were walking along the river again. He said, "Yuna, there's something I need to tell you." She turned to him, eyes bright and trusting. "What is it?" He looked at her, at the way she smiled at him like he was worth her time, like he was all that mattered. And instead of telling her the truth, he kissed her. It was gentle, tender. She kissed him back, and for a moment the world narrowed to just them. The river, the sunset, the feeling of finally finding someone who understood. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "What were you going to say?" He said, "Just that I'm really glad I met you." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. Over the next month, they became inseparable. Every weekend, every evening Yuna wasn't working late. They explored Seoul together. He showed her his photographs. She told him about her dreams of someday starting her own business, helping companies grow sustainably. He showed her his Empire's Cost series, photographs of corporate buildings, close-ups of workers' exhausted faces, the shadows cast by towering headquarters, images of what success looked like from the outside and what it cost on the inside. Yuna found them hauntingly beautiful. She said, "You see things other people miss." He replied, "So do you. You just don't realize it yet." Meanwhile, Hae-jin's situation was getting worse. Her mother-in-law had walked into their bedroom again, this time to deliver fresh sheets, while they were in bed. Hae-jin was reaching her breaking point. She told Yuna over coffee, "I don't know how much more I can take. Do-hyun just apologizes to her and to me and changes nothing. I feel invisible in my own marriage. Yuna, who was finally experiencing what a healthy relationship could feel like, said, "You deserve to be treated with respect, even by family, especially by family." Hae-jin looked at her friend's glowing face and said, "This photographer of yours, he's good for you." Yuna smiled. "Yeah, he is." 2 months into their relationship, Yi-hun suggested they spend Saturday exploring Gangnam. Shopping, walking, just being together. Yuna agreed immediately. It was a beautiful spring day. They wandered through COEX Mall, the massive luxury shopping center in the heart of Gangnam, holding hands, laughing, completely in their own world. They were standing near the central atrium, looking at a window display when Yuna froze. Her entire body went rigid. Yi-hun felt it immediately. He asked, "What's wrong?" She said, barely breathing, "That's my boss." Across the open space, maybe 30 meters away, stood Ms. Kang. Alone, looking at a storefront window. It was jarring seeing her outside the office, without her armor of glass walls and corner office power. Yi-hun went pale. He said quickly, "We should go," but it was too late. Ms. Kang turned, saw them. For one frozen second, the entire mall seemed to stop. Ms. Kang walked toward them. Her face was unreadable, professional. Cold, she said, "Yuna, I didn't expect to see you here." Her eyes moved to Yi-hun, and everything in her expression changed. Shock, pain, something that might have been hope, then ice slamming back down like a shield. She said, her voice carefully controlled, "Yi-hun." Yuna's world tilted. She looked between them, her boss, the man she was falling in love with, the way they were looking at each other, like they knew each other, like they shared history. She said, voice small, "You know each other." Yi-hun's voice was quiet, defeated. He sighed, Mom, M." Yuna stepped back like she'd been physically pushed. She looked at Ms. Kang. At Yi-hun. Understanding crashed over her in waves, the ice queen, who never spoke about family, who had a son she was estranged from. The son was Yi-hun. The man she'd been dating for 2 months, the man she'd shared everything with, was her boss's son. Ms. Kang, reverting to her coldest self, said crisply, "I have somewhere to be. Yuna, I'll see you Monday." She turned to leave, desperate to escape this moment, this exposure. Ms. Kang walked away quickly, leaving them standing there. Yuna turned to Yi-hun. She asked, her voice shaking, "You're her son, you're Ms. Kang's son." He nodded, miserable. She continued, When did you know I worked for her?" He said quietly, "The first time you mentioned Kang Industries." Her breath caught. That was a month ago." "I know, I'm sorry, I wanted to tell you," she interrupted. "But you didn't. For a month you knew, every date, every conversation. Every time I talked about work, about my boss, you knew." He reached for her. "Please, let me explain." She stepped back. "You lied to me, you lied by not telling me." He said desperately, "I was going to tell you, I just didn't know how." Yuna felt like the ground was shifting under her feet. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. She said, "I need to leave, I need to think." Yi-hun said, "Yuna, please, don't go like this." She looked at him, this man she'd trusted, who'd been lying to her for a month. "Don't, not right now." She walked away, left him standing there in the mall, left him calling her name. She didn't look back. That evening, Ms. Kang sat alone in her penthouse apartment. Pristine, perfect, empty. She'd gotten halfway home before she realized she was shaking. She'd seen her son for the first time in 5 years, and he'd been with Yuna, her Yuna. And she was dating her estranged son. The universe was cruel. The doorbell rang. Ms. Kang opened it to find Yi-hun standing there. She said, surprised, "What are you doing here?" He said, "We need to talk." It was the first time he'd been in her home in 5 years. They stood awkwardly in her living room. Ms. Kang said stiffly, "You should have told me you were seeing someone." Yi-hun laughed bitterly. "Would you have cared?" She flinched. "That's not fair." He said, "Isn't it? When was the last time we spoke before today?" She replied defensively, "You chose to leave." He shot back, "Because you chose work. Every time, my entire childhood, every school play, every birthday, Every moment that mattered, you chose this. He gestured at her expensive apartment. Ms. Kang's voice wavered. I built that company for us, for our future. Yi-hun said. I didn't need an empire, I needed a mother. Silence fell, heavy and painful. Yi-hun's voice softened. I didn't plan to meet Yuna. I didn't know she worked for you until it was too late. I was already falling for her. Ms. Kang said quietly, She's my PA, this is inappropriate. Yi-hun replied, She's a person, a brilliant, kind person. Did you know her family's company went bankrupt? Ms. Kang went very still. She said carefully, I'm aware. Yi-hun studied her. Your company was the investor who pulled out. Ms. Kang's walls went up immediately. It was a business decision. Yi-hun said, It destroyed her family, and you hired her anyway. Did you feel guilty? Ms. Kang's voice cracked slightly. I admired her. She was rebuilding like I did. She reminded me of yourself, Yi-hun finished. Ms. Kang said, vulnerable for the first time, of the person I was before. It was the most honest they'd been in a decade. Yi-hun said, She deserves to know the truth. About her family, about me, about everything. Ms. Kang said quietly, She'll hate us both. Yi-hun nodded. Maybe, but at least we'll have been honest. He left. Ms. Kang stood alone in her pristine apartment. For the first time in years, she let herself cry. Monday morning. Yuna arrived at the office at 6:30, earlier than usual. She'd barely slept all weekend. Ignored Yi-hun's calls, his texts, his desperate voicemails. She didn't know what to say, didn't know what to feel. At 7 a.m., Ms. Kang arrived. She saw Yuna at her desk and something flickered across her face. But then the mask was back. Perfect. Cold. Ms. Kang said, as if nothing had happened, Good morning, Yuna. I need the Jensen contracts by noon. Yuna replied, professional but hollow. Of course, Ms. Kang. They worked in painful silence, both pretending, both breaking. Yuna threw herself into work, answered phones, organized meetings, managed crises. On the outside, she was the perfect assistant, efficient, professional, unshakable. But on the inside, she was falling apart. Dark circles under her eyes, a permanent knot in her stomach, the feeling of being betrayed by the two people she'd trusted and liked. Tuesday, the receptionist called up. Ms. Park, there's someone in the lobby for you. Yuna knew without asking. Tell him I'm in a meeting. It happened again Wednesday, and Thursday. Each time she refused to see him. Yi-hun sent flowers with a note. Please let me explain. I'm sorry. I love you. She left them in the lobby. He waited outside the building one evening. She took the back exit. Ms. Kang maintained her ice queen persona. In meetings, she was sharp as ever. Cold, calculating. Thursday night, Yuna couldn't sleep. She opened her laptop and started researching. Her family's bankruptcy. 8 years ago, her father's construction company. She found old articles, financial records, and there it was in black and white. Kang Industries, primary investor. Funding pulled during cash flow crisis. Other investors followed. Bankruptcy filed 3 months later. Ms. Kang had destroyed her family and then hired her, knowing. Friday afternoon, Yuna asked to speak with Ms. Kang privately. Ms. Kang's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes looked almost afraid. She said, Of course, come in. Yuna closed the door. She stood in front of the desk. Ms. Kang remained seated. Yuna said, her voice calm but filled with deep sadness, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Ms. Kang said, guarded, of course. Yuna continued, 8 years ago, my father's construction company went bankrupt. Kang Industries was the primary investor. You pulled funding. Ms. Kang said quietly, yes. You knew who I was when you hired me. It wasn't a question. Ms. Kang said simply, yes. Yuna's voice broke slightly. Why didn't you tell me? Ms. Kang started. Because you earned the position regardless of the past, your qualifications. Yuna interrupted. That's not what I'm asking. Why didn't you tell me you destroyed my family? Ms. Kang, finally honest, said, It was a business decision. The company was failing. I had a fiduciary responsibility to my investors. Yuna said, tears forming, My father had a heart attack from the stress. He's never been the same. My mother works 2 jobs. I put myself through university. We lost everything. Our home, our savings, our future. Ms. Kang said quietly, I know. Yuna asked, did you hire me out of guilt? Ms. Kang struggled with the answer. I hired you because you reminded me of myself, determined to rebuild from nothing. I admired that. But you never told me. Would it have changed anything? Ms. Kang asked. Yuna's tears finally fell. She said, it would have been honest. You taught me everything about business, about strength, about professionalism, about how to be indispensable, but you didn't teach me the most important thing. Ms. Kang asked quietly, what's that? Yuna said, that integrity matters more than success. Long, painful silence. The only sound was the hum of the city beyond the glass walls. Yuna composed herself, wiped her eyes. She said, I'm resigning, effective in 2 weeks. I'll help train my replacement. Ms. Kang's carefully controlled facade cracked. Yuna. Yuna said, I'm not angry, Ms. Kang, I'm just sad. I'll have everything organized before I go. Thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Kang. I learned a lot. She left the office, closed the door quietly behind her. Ms. Kang sat alone in her office. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across her pristine desk. And for the first time in 30 years of building her empire, she allowed herself to truly break. Tears fell silently. Her shoulders shook. The Ice Queen melted, and there was no one there to see. The next 2 weeks were the longest of Yuna's life. She came in early, left late, trained the new assistant, a young woman named Minjai who was terrified of Ms. Kang. Yuna was patient with her, thorough, professional to the last. Ms. Kang was quieter than usual. The entire office noticed. The synergy that had existed between CEO and assistant was gone, replaced by polite, cold distance. Yi-hun kept trying. He left a letter at Yuna's apartment, pages long, handwritten, a full confession, apology, explanation. I was wrong not to tell you immediately. I was afraid of losing you before we even had a chance. I'm still afraid, but you deserve the truth even if it costs me everything. I love you, I'm sorry. Yuna read it late one night, cried over it, but she wasn't ready. The betrayal still hurt too much. She needed space, time, to figure out certain things. Her last day arrived, Friday, 2 weeks exactly. Yuna left detailed notes, organized files, color-coded systems, everything the new assistant would need to survive the Ice Queen. She worked until 7 p.m., making sure everything was perfect. At 7:30, she knocked on Ms. Kang's door one last time. Ms. Kang looked up. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Yuna said, everything's ready for Minjai. The files are organized. I've written out all your preferences. She'll do fine once she gets used to your style. Ms. Kang said quietly, thank you. You were the best PA I ever had. Yuna allowed herself a small, sad smile. I hope you find someone better. They both knew that was impossible. Yuna left, walked out of Kang Industries for the last time, and didn't look back. She met Soo-jin and Hae-jin at Moonlight Cafe. Her friends took one look at her and pulled her into a booth. Wine appeared, tissues, understanding. Yuna told them everything. The bankruptcy connection, Yi-hun being Ms. Kang's son, the lies, the betrayal. Soo-jin said, that's a lot. Hae-jin asked, what are you going to do now? Yuna said, surprising herself, I'm going to build something of my own. Soo-jin said, what do you mean? Yuna's eyes lit up slightly. I'm going to start a consulting firm, help small businesses, strategy, growth, sustainability, everything I learned from her. Hae-jin said, that sounds amazing, but don't you need capital, connections? Yuna admitted, I have savings, not much, but enough to start small. I'll work from home, or... She looked at Soo-jin hopefully. Soo-jin grinned. You want to work from the cafe? Yuna nodded. Just until I can afford real office space. Soo-jin said immediately, yes, absolutely yes. The corner table is yours. Hae-jin said quietly, you're so brave, starting over, choosing yourself. Yuna looked at her friend. You could too, you know. Hae-jin took a breath. I've been thinking about that. About what you said, about deserving respect. I'm going to talk to Do Hyun, really talk. Set boundaries with his mother if he can't support me. Then I'll know what I need to do." The three women raised their glasses. Sujin said, "To new beginnings, to being brave." Back at Kang Industries, Ms. Kang was drowning. The new assistant, Minjai, was terrible. She couldn't anticipate anything. Cried when Ms. Kang corrected her. Lasted 3 days before quitting in tears. The replacement wasn't much better. By the end of the month, Ms. Kang had gone through 4 assistants. Dooyeon, a partner at the firm, finally confronted her. "You're falling apart without Yuna." Ms. Kang said coldly, "I'm fine." Dooyeon shook her head. "You've gone through 4 PAs in a month. You snap at everyone. You look exhausted. Admit it, you miss her." Ms. Kang's walls crumbled. She said, voice breaking, "She was more than my assistant, and I failed her, just like I failed Yi Hun." Dooyeon said gently, "Then fix it, both relationships, before it's too late." Ms. Kang whispered, "I don't know how." Dooyeon replied, "Start with honesty." A month passed. Yuna threw herself into building Phoenix Advisory, her consulting firm. She worked from Sujin's cafe, landed her first client, a small bakery struggling with finances, then a family restaurant. Word spread slowly but surely. Haijin had her confrontation with Do Hyun. She told him, set boundaries with his mother or she was leaving. For the first time, he actually listened. He called his mother and established rules. No more unannounced visits, no more comments about their marriage, respect or distance. His mother was furious but backed off. And slowly, Haijin and Do Hyun's marriage began to heal. Yi Hun's art exhibition was scheduled to open. Empire's Cost, his documentary photography series. He didn't invite Yuna directly, but he left a ticket at Sujin's cafe. Weeks after leaving Kang Industries, Yuna decided to go to Yi Hun's art exhibition. Sujin came with her for moral support. The gallery was in Itaewon, modern, white walls, soft lighting. The photographs were stunning. Corporate buildings shot from below, making them look like prisons. Close-ups of workers' faces, exhaustion, determination, loss. Images of what success cost, the human price of empire. And in the center of the exhibition, the largest photo. It was Ms. Kang. The photo was titled Empire's Cost, What Remains. Yuna stood in front of it for a long time. She understood what he'd been doing, documenting his mother's world, trying to understand her. The project wasn't an attack. It was a question. Was it worth it? A voice beside her said quietly, "He sees me more clearly than I see myself." Yuna turned. Ms. Kang stood there, out of context without her office armor, just a woman in an elegant coat looking at a photo of herself. Ms. Kang said, "He invited me, I almost didn't come, but Dooyeon insisted." She paused. "He misses you, talks about you constantly, to me of all people." Yuna said carefully, "He should have been honest." Ms. Kang nodded. "So should I. I'm sorry, Yuna, for everything, for your family, for not telling you, for failing you." Yuna asked, "Why now? Why apologize now?" Ms. Kang's voice was raw. "Because I've spent my whole life building walls, and I finally realized I built a prison. You and Yi Hun were the only people who ever tried to reach through them, and I pushed you both away." Yuna softened slightly. "It's not too late with him. He's your son." Ms. Kang said hopefully, "Will you talk to him?" Yuna looked across the gallery where Yi Hun stood talking to visitors. "I don't know yet. I'm not ready." Ms. Kang nodded. "I understand, but when you are, he'll be waiting." After the crowd thinned, Ms. Kang approached Yi Hun. He looked surprised. Wary, she said, "Your work is powerful." He replied carefully, "It's honest." Ms. Kang took a breath. "I'm sorry for everything, for choosing work over you, for missing your childhood, for not being the mother you needed, for becoming so cold I forgot how to love." Yi Hun's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted to know you, to understand why you chose that life." Ms. Kang's voice broke. "I was afraid. After your father left, I thought if I built something unbreakable, nothing could hurt us again, but I hurt you instead, and I'm so sorry." For the first time in 5 years, they embraced, both crying, both healing. When they pulled apart, Ms. Kang asked, "Tell me about Yuna." Yi-hun said, "She won't talk to me." Ms. Kang replied, "Give her time." Yi-hun nodded, "I will." 2 weeks later, Yuna finally agreed to meet Yi-hun. She suggested the Han River, where they'd had their first kiss, where everything had felt possible. It was sunset, the sky painted gold and pink. Yi-hun was already there when she arrived. He looked nervous, hopeful, terrified. He said, "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." Yuna said, "I read your letter, all 27 of them." He managed a small smile. "I meant every word." Yuna asked the question that had haunted her. "Why didn't you tell me right away? The moment you knew?" Yi-hun took a breath. "Because I'm a coward. Because I wanted one thing in my life that wasn't connected to my mother. Because I fell for you and I was afraid the truth would end it before it began." He continued, "But that was selfish and wrong. I should have told you immediately." Silence. The river flowed past. The city hummed around them. Yuna said finally, "I understand why. Fear makes us do stupid things, makes us lie when we should speak, hide when we should be brave." Yi-hun asked carefully, "Does that mean?" Yuna said, "It means I'm willing to try again, slowly, with complete honesty this time. No more secrets, no more lies." Yi-hun's face lit up. "I can do that. Honesty, complete transparency, whatever you need." Yuna added, "And I need to figure out my own life first. My business, my independence. I need to be whole on my own before I can be part of an us." He said immediately, "I'll wait, however long it takes, a month, a year, forever if that's what you need." Yuna smiled, a real smile. "Let's start with coffee, like we did the first time." They kissed, tentative, hopeful, real. It felt like starting over, like second chances, like maybe, just maybe, they could build something honest this time. 6 months passed. Phoenix Advisory grew steadily. Yuna hired 2 employees, moved into actual office space above Moonlight Cafe. She helped small businesses with strategy, growth, sustainable practices. What she didn't know was that several of her best clients had been referred by an anonymous source, someone who knew exactly which businesses needed help and had the connections to send them her way. Someone who was helping from the shadows. Miss Kang, making amends the only way she knew how. Sujin's cafe expanded to a second location. Yuna had consulted on the business plan. Moonlight Cafe was thriving, a neighborhood staple, a place where people felt welcome. Haijin and Du-hyun were actually happy now. He'd cut his hours, made time for her. His mother still tried to meddle occasionally, but the boundaries held. They were talking about having children, on their terms, when they were ready. Yi-hun's Empire's Cost series sold well, and he was working on a new project, this time about healing, about second chances. Ms. Kang was still CEO, still tough, still demanding, but she left the office at 6 p.m. twice a week now, had dinner with Yi-hun regularly, slowly, carefully rebuilding their relationship, learning to be human again. One Thursday afternoon, Yuna was working in her office when her assistant buzzed. "Someone's here to see you. She says it's important." Yuna looked up to see Ms. Kang standing in her doorway, elegant but somehow softer than before. Yuna stood, surprised. "Ms. Kang, what are you doing here?" Ms. Kang smiled slightly. "I came to ask if you're hearing." Yuna blinked. "What?" Ms. Kang's smile widened. "I'm kidding, though you could probably use someone with my Rolodex." She became serious. "Actually, I came to ask if you'd consider a partnership. Your firm and Kang Industries. You help our clients with sustainable growth strategies. We provide capital and connections. You maintain complete independence and final say on all decisions." Yuna studied her former boss. "Equal partnership." Ms. Kang said firmly, "I wouldn't have it any other way. You've proven yourself. Built something solid in 6 months. I respect that." Yuna said carefully, "I'll think about it." Ms. Kang nodded. "That's all I ask." That Saturday, Yuna, Yi-hun, and Ms. Kang had dinner together. A small restaurant in Hanam-dong. Nothing fancy, just the 3 of them, talking, laughing, tentatively building something that looked almost like family. Yi-hun's hand found Yuna's under the table. Ms. Kang watched them and allowed herself to smile. They'd all been broken in different ways. Ms. Kang by ambition and fear, Yi Hun by abandonment and resentment, Yuna by betrayal and loss. But they were healing. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard conversations to be had, old wounds that would take time to fully heal. But they were trying, and that was enough. As Yuna sat there, surrounded by the man she loved and the woman who taught her strength, she realized something. Sometimes the people who hurt you are the ones who teach you the most important lessons. About strength, about forgiveness, about what you're willing to fight for. Ms. Kang taught Yuna how to build an empire, but Yuna taught Ms. Kang something even more valuable. How to be human again. How to love without fear. How to let people in.